What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense actors sits down with daytime television's sharpest, most opinionated panel? Spoiler, it doesn't end with polite applause or scheduled commercial breaks. Today, we dive into the explosive confrontation that had Tom Hardy storming off the View set, leaving Joy Behar speechless and the other co-hosts scrambling to salvage what was supposed to be a routine promotional interview. This is a story about creative integrity, media scrutiny, and what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment, 'cause this story only gets wilder. Tension crackled from the moment Hardy walked onto the set, fresh off promoting his latest gritty crime thriller. The British actor carried the familiar intensity that had made him a household name. His publicist had scheduled this appearance as part of the standard promotional circuit, but nobody expected things to spiral so quickly. Whoopi Goldberg, moderating that day, opened with her usual warm welcome. "We're thrilled to have Tom Hardy here. Tom, you've been making some incredible films lately, and your latest project looks fascinating." Hardy nodded politely, scanning the panel. Sitting beside Whoopi were Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, each armed with prepared questions and their own agendas. "Thanks for having me," Hardy replied in his gruff, gravelly voice. "Always interesting to be here in New York." Behar jumped in, cutting through the pleasantries. "Tom, I have to ask about your choice of roles. You always played these dark, violent characters. Don't you think Hollywood has a responsibility to promote more positive messages, especially today?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Hardy's jaw tightened subtly, but his response was measured. "I think storytelling is about exploring the full spectrum of human experience: joy, darkness, and light. That's what makes art meaningful." "But surely you see how glorifying violence affects society," Behar pressed, her tone sharpening. "The characters you play aren't exactly role models for young people." Sarah Haynes intervened diplomatically. "I think what Joy's getting at is whether actors have a responsibility to consider the impact of their work." Hardy acknowledged her with a nod. "Absolutely, Sarah. But my responsibility is to tell authentic stories, not to sanitize reality. When I played Bronson, I wasn't glorifying prison violence. I was showing the psychological complexity of a real person." Sunny leaned forward, her legal precision evident. "Tom, that's an interesting point about authenticity. But how do you balance that with the commercial side of filmmaking? Studios profit from violence." "It's a fair question," Sunny Hardy replied respectfully. "The commercial side exists, but that doesn't negate artistic intent. Look at films like The Revenant or Mad Max. Yes, there's action and violence, but they are fundamentally about survival and what it means to be human under extreme circumstances." Alyssa Farah Griffin nodded thoughtfully. "It's about context and story, not just surface-level violence." Behar wasn't satisfied. "Oh, come on. You can dress it up in artistic language, but you're making millions from movies where people get beaten and killed. How's that different from what we criticize in other media?" The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Hardy straightened, a flash of genuine irritation crossing his features. "Joy, with respect, I think you're oversimplifying both my work and storytelling itself," he said, calm but edged with intensity. "When Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, was he glorifying murder? When Scorsese made Goodfellas, was he promoting organized crime? Those are completely different," Behar fired back. "Shakespeare was high art. What you're doing is commercial entertainment designed to make money off violence." Hardy's eyes narrowed. The other panelists could sense the shift in energy. Whoopi tried to redirect. "Let's talk about your process as an actor. Tom, how do you prepare for these intense roles?" But Hardy was no longer in promotional mode. "You know, Whoopi, I'd love to discuss craft, but I'm a bit stuck on Joy's assessment of my work as somehow less legitimate than other forms of storytelling." "I didn't say it was illegitimate," Behar replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. I'm just questioning whether it's responsible, she countered. Responsible to whom? Hardy asked, his voice gaining intensity. To you? To some arbitrary standard of what entertainment should be. Who appointed you the arbiter of artistic merit? The studio fell silent. The debate had escalated beyond the spirited exchange the View was known for. Sarah Haynes looked uneasy, while Sonny watched with the focus of someone witnessing a legal cross-examination. I'm just asking questions viewers want answered, Behar said. This is a talk show, not a fan club, Hardy replied, and I'm giving honest answers. But there's a difference between asking questions and dismissing an entire body of work because it doesn't fit your personal preferences. Lissa tried to de-escalate, but the tension had clearly reached a breaking point. I think we're all just trying to understand the broader implications of entertainment choices in today's world, Alyssa said cautiously. Hardy turned to her, nodding. Alyssa, I appreciate that's a conversation worth having, but there's a way to have that conversation without condescension. The word hung in the air, pointedly. Joy Behar bristled visibly. Condescension. I'm asking legitimate questions about the content you're putting out there. No, Joy, Hardy replied, his voice calm at first, but with an edge creeping in. You're not just asking questions. You started this interview by essentially declaring my work harmful and irresponsible. You dismissed my explanations about artistic integrity and storytelling. You compared my work unfavorably to Shakespeare, as if commercial success somehow invalidates artistic merit. That's not questioning, it's judging. The studio fell silent, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Camera operators adjusted angles, realizing they were capturing something far beyond a typical celebrity interview. Whoopi attempted to regain control. Tom, we're all navigating the relationship between art and social responsibility here. Behar jumped in, undeterred. Exactly, Whoopi. And it's fair to ask whether someone making millions portraying violent characters has truly considered the impact of their work. That was it. Hardy's composure finally cracked. You know what, Joy? Let me ask you something. What is your contribution to society? You sit behind this desk every day gossiping about celebrities, passing judgment on personal lives, and making snide comments about people you clearly don't understand. How is that more socially responsible than the films I make? The audience gasped audibly. Behar's face flushed through several shades of red. The panelists exchanged uneasy glances. The studio was dead silent, the tension palpable. Excuse me, Behar said, her voice dangerously low. Are you seriously attacking what I do for a living? I'm not attacking. I'm pointing out hypocrisy, Hardy shot back, his eyes blazing. You want to lecture me about responsibility while your career is built on commentary and criticism? At least my characters serve a narrative purpose. What purpose does your judgment of others serve? Sonny Host tried to intervene. Tom, let's not make this personal. It became personal the moment Joy decided my work wasn't worthy of respect. Hardy interrupted, his gaze fixed. I came here to talk about a film that took 3 years of my life exploring redemption and resilience. Instead, I'm lectured by someone whose idea of discourse is interrupting and making sarcastic comments. Whoopi, try it again. Tom, let's take a breath. This is getting heated. No, Whoopi. Let him speak, Behar said, her voice dripping with disdain. I want to hear more about how terrible I am at my job from someone who pretends to be other people for a living. Hardy's jaw tightened. Pretends to be other people, he repeated slowly, deadly quiet. Is that really how you see what actors do? Well, what would you call it? Behar smirked. You memorize lines, put on costumes, and play pretend. It's not exactly rocket science. The studio went silent. Even Behar seemed to sense she'd crossed a line, but her pride wouldn't let her back down. Alyssa and Sonny exchanged mortified glances. Hardy stood slowly, sending a ripple of tension through the room. You know what, Joy? I've worked with incredible people directors devoted to storytelling, writers pouring their souls into scripts, cinematographers creating visual poetry, actors transforming completely to serve a story. I've seen veterans with PTSD find solace in these stories. I've met kids inspired to overcome their struggles because they saw characters who never gave up. I've been part of films raising awareness about mental health, social justice, and human dignity. Paya shifted in her seat, but remained defiant. All very touching, but most of your movies are violent entertainment. And your show is what, exactly? Enlightened discourse. Hardy fired back. You spend your days gossiping about celebrities, making jokes about appearances, and reducing complex issues to sound bites. At least my violence serves a purpose. Your cruelty is just for ratings. The word cruelty landed like a blow. Sarah Haynes looked unsettled, her expression stern. Wait a minute, Behar said, rising, her voice climbing. I've interviewed world leaders, covered important stories, given voice to issues that matter. Have you ever challenged anything, or just preached to people who already agree with you? Alyssa Farah Griffin tried desperately to intervene, but the tension had reached a boiling point. I think we're all passionate about our work, Alyssa said cautiously, and maybe we should focus on that common ground. Hardy was beyond diplomacy now, his gaze locked on Joy. You want to know what's irresponsible, Joy? It's sitting in this privileged position, using your platform to tear people down instead of building anything up, making careers out of cynicism and calling it journalism. I am a journalist, Behar snapped, her voice sharp. Being in the business and being good at it are two very different things, Hardy replied coldly. Longevity doesn't equal legitimacy. The audience was riveted. This wasn't entertainment anymore, it was raw, unfiltered confrontation. Every gesture, every expression, every heated glance was captured on camera. Sunny host tried to mediate. I think we all respect each other's professions. Maybe we can have this conversation without personal attacks. Hardy turned to her, voice measured but firm. Sunny, I appreciate that. Respect has to be mutual. I didn't come here to attack anyone. I came to talk about my work, and I was immediately put on the defensive by someone who clearly has no interest in understanding it. Understanding? Behar laughed bitterly. What's there to understand? You punch people on screen and get paid millions. It's not exactly Hamlet. Hardy's face darkened. You know what? You're right, it's not Hamlet. Because Hamlet was written, performed, and directed by one person. What I do involves hundreds of people working together, stunt coordinators, choreographing action like dance, sound designers building entire worlds, makeup artists transforming actors, cinematographers crafting visual poetry. Every film employs dozens of artists and technicians supporting their families through their craft. And you sit there dismissing all of that as playing pretend. Whoopi finally intervened with authority. All right, everyone needs to calm down. This is getting out of hand. Behar wasn't finished. Oh, so now I'm supposed to feel sorry for millionaire actors and their crews. Give me a break. You make more in one film than most people in a lifetime, and you want sympathy. It's not about sympathy, Hardy snapped, patience thinning. It's about basic respect for the work and the people who do it. But clearly, that's something you're incapable of. Capable. Bear's voice climbed. You arrogant British snob. You come on my show, insult me, insult my work, insult my intelligence, and then lecture me about respect. Hardy's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Your show. Joy, this isn't your show. This is The View. You're one voice among many, though you seem to forget that. And as for being a snob, at least I don't pretend my opinions are more valuable than everyone else's just because I have a microphone. I dare you, Behar hissed. I've earned my place here, and so have I, Hardy shot back. The difference is, I don't use my platform to tear others down for sport. The tension was at its peak. Both were standing now, facing each other like gladiators across a table. Whoopi's voice cut through with authority. "All right, that's enough. Sit down and take a breath." "No, Whoopi," Behar said, voice full of venom. "I'm not sitting here and being insulted by an actor who thinks he's better than everyone else. You glorify violence and then lecture me about responsibility." Hardy's laugh was sharp, bitter. "Glorify violence? Joy, you've clearly never watched my films. You've made up your mind based on what movie posters, trailers, criticizing work you haven't even bothered to understand." "I don't need to watch every violent movie to know what they're selling," Behar fired back. "Blood, guns, testosterone. That's your brand, isn't it?" Sarah Haynes finally spoke, desperation in her tone. "Can we please take a step back? This is getting way too personal." Hardy's voice softened, just enough. "Sarah, I appreciate that. But this stopped being personal when Joy decided to attack not just my work, but my character and intelligence." Sunny Host nodded grimly. "Tom's right. This has crossed some lines." Behar turned on Sunny. "Oh, now you're taking his side. This is exactly what I mean. Hollywood comes in with charm and accents, and suddenly nobody asks the hard questions." "Hard questions?" Hardy's voice rose incredulously. "Joy, you haven't asked a single hard question. You've made accusations, been dismissive, condescending, but you haven't asked anything that even resembles journalism." Lisa Farrah Griffin tried one last time to de-escalate. "Look, I think we're all passionate about our work, and maybe that passion is getting the better of us." "Passion?" Behar scoffed, her voice dripping with derision. "This isn't passion," Behar shot back, voice dripping with accusation. "This is arrogance, pure and simple. He can't handle being challenged, so he attacks me personally." Hardy's composure finally snapped. "Challenged, Joy? You want to know what a real challenge looks like?" His voice rose, controlled but fierce. "Try spending 6 months learning to fight like a prisoner for Bronson. Try gaining 40 pounds of muscle and then losing it again for a role. Try working 18-hour days in brutal conditions to tell a story that actually matters to people. Try collaborating with directors, writers, and actors to create something that didn't exist before. Try taking risks with your career to work on projects that mean something, instead of taking the safe path every single time." "Oh, please." Behar rolled her eyes. "You're not curing cancer. You're making movies. And you're not changing the world. You're hosting a talk show." Hardy's jaw tightened. "At least I don't pretend my work is more important than everyone else's." Whoopi Goldberg's voice finally cut through the tension, calm but firm. "Okay, that's it. We're going to commercial." But Hardy shook his head, disgust written across his face. "You know what, Whoopi? Don't bother. I'm done here." He reached to remove his microphone, but Behar wasn't finished. "Oh, what a surprise. The tough guy can't handle a little criticism, so he's running away." Hardy froze, hand on the mic clip. Slowly, deliberately, he turned back to face her. "I've been in this industry for over 2 decades, he said, voice measured but razor sharp. "I've been criticized by people who actually know what they're talking about, reviewed by professional critics, challenged by directors who push me to be better. But I have never, ever encountered someone so thoroughly committed to ignorance as you are right now. You don't want a conversation. You want a monologue? You don't want to learn. You want to prove you're right. You don't want to engage with ideas. You want to tear them down." The studio went silent. Cameras zeroed in as Hardy continued. "You talk about social responsibility, but what's responsible about your approach? You interrupt, dismiss, attack, and turn every conversation into a fight tand, then act surprised when people fight back." Sarah Haynes slumped in her chair, trying not to be seen. Sunny Host shook her head slowly. Alyssa Farrah Griffin stared at the table, wishing she could vanish. Behar's face flushed, a mix of anger and embarrassment. "You don't know anything about me or what I've accomplished," she spat. "I know enough," Hardy replied coldly. "I know that today you had every opportunity to have a meaningful conversation about art, storytelling, and the responsibility of entertainers in society. Instead, you chose to be petty, dismissive, and insulting." Removed his microphone and placed it firmly on the table. "You want to know what's truly irresponsible? Wasting a platform like this, choosing to grandstand and attack instead of engaging with different perspectives." Whoopi made one last attempt. "Tom, let's just take a break and reset." Hardy gave her a respectful nod. "Whoopi, I have nothing but admiration for you. This isn't about you or the show. This is about someone more interested in being right than being fair." He turned back to Behar, voice heavy with finality. "Joy, I hope someday you realize that your role here gives you the power to elevate conversations, not destroy them. You could use your platform to bring out the best in your guests, explore ideas, inform your audience. Instead, you've chosen to tear people down. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's cruelty. And your audience deserves better." Without another word, Hardy turned and strode toward the exit. His footsteps echoed through the studio as stunned silence filled the space. Behar finally spoke, weakly. "This is ridiculous. He's being completely unreasonable." But the fight had left her. The other panelists stayed silent, still processing what they'd just witnessed. "That was intense," Sarah whispered. "I've never seen anything like that in all my years." Sonny added, "I feel like we all need to learn something from this." Alyssa said, shaken. Whoopi sat back, thoughtful. "Well, that certainly wasn't what anyone expected today." Behar remained standing, face a mixture of anger and something like shame. He had no right to speak to me that way. Yet the silence that followed spoke volumes. The cameras stopped rolling. What had begun as a routine promotional interview had become a defining moment, a brutal reminder of the power of discourse, respect, and responsibility in entertainment. This was more than a clash between a host and a guest. It was a moment that would define both of them in the eyes of the public for years to come.